Well, J-Pound just gave us a giant dose of exactly what we expected. Wait and see, with a little bit of a taste of a bear. Yeah, we actually got a little bit more bear here than I think we were bargaining for, because Jerome Powell's really talking about how not only are we in a tricky situation, but that data could break soon in either direction. And this break, in other words, higher inflation or higher unemployment or both, could happen very rapidly. And when he was asked about, hey, well, how much unemployment are you willing to handle? He kind of led this discussion about unemployment and their capacity for handling unemployment with a reference to 2024, which is a really good lesson. And I think if there's anything you take away from this Fed meeting, it's actually about how the Fed is going to respond as soon as unemployment goes poopy-doopy. So look, last year in 2024, we were not at 2% inflation yet. We were still around 2.5, 2.8, 3-ish% inflation, trending to 2%. And what they saw is the unemployment rate go from the mid-threes to like 4.3. That was enough to freak the Federal Reserve out, along with the triggering of the SOM rule, to lower rates 100 basis points. So I would venture to say if we saw the unemployment rate go from roughly where it is now to breaking 5%, we'd probably expect to see another 100 basis points of cuts actually relatively rapidly. So I don't think the Federal Reserve has much of a desire to see the unemployment rate go up. If it actually starts looking like we're trending even higher, the Federal Reserve will actually cut rates to 0. That's my opinion. And Jerome Powell giving us this example of 2024 and their capacity or willingness to respond to employment and how quickly they responded, talks about going to Jackson Hole, talking about the problems, and then cutting rates 50, 25, 25, shows you they don't want unemployment up. Unemployment up is bad. They're still going to talk this hard talk about how inflation's got to come down, but I think Jay Powell is convinced that if they were able to get inflation down from 9% through what in the long term will be seen as a transitory movement up, right? I know that's a joke and they clown the Fed for it, but let's be real. If we zoom out over a 10, 15-year time frame, prices went up and then the inflation rate tapered down, okay? They're going to do the same thing with tariffs. They might phrase it differently, but it's going to be the same thing. The unemployment rate spiking could lead to a 3-year recession, which is terrible, and they want to avoid that. The problem is Jay Powell makes it clear that, the soft data is bad. Uncertainty's not good, with businesses and consumers. Things look bad with shipping and businesses. We're paying attention to it all. There are a lot of changes. Things could break in either direction, but we're not going to be preemptive. Okay. There's the second thing to pay attention to. So if the first thing to pay attention to is that the Fed does not have a lot of interest in letting the unemployment rate go up, then the second thing to pay attention to is that they're not going to be preemptive, which basically means if you're begging for rate cuts, don't expect to see them until the unemployment rate starts ticking up. Now, we are seeing that some of that Trump enthusiasm that came with the election is starting to wane. Where do we see this? It's very simple. Go to househack.com. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that to you. All right? No, I'll do that to you later. This 27-week unemployed number right here is what you got to pay attention to. Look at this. The 27-week unemployed number popped in from May to June of 2024. Substantial pop in 27 weeks unemployed. That's more than 6 months, okay? Just in case you're wondering why they use 27 weeks, it's because 52 divided by 2 is 26. Oh, shit, I never realized. I know, that's what I'm here for. Like and subscribe. Okay, so the 27-week unemployed figure is important because these are people who don't show up on those weekly unemployment claims every Thursday. And then you see the Fed cuts rates right here. So you can see they did not actually have a lot of capacity for being willing to let this keep going up. Then Donald Trump wins in November, and look at what happens to 27 weeks unemployed. People get really enthusiastic. We get 2025 hiring, stock market at all-time high. Oh my gosh, we're going to go into the biggest MAGA expansion ever. Yay, yay, yay. And then all of a sudden we get liberated. And so what do we get with liberation? We're right back to the 27-week unemployment numbers that actually set up the rate cuts last year. So watch this data. Now, that said, we haven't seen the data here yet, which is the third thing you should take away from this Fed meeting. Okay, this is the fancy thing that Jerome Powell actually, Mitch McConnell glitched on trying to figure out what the components of this equation are. It doesn't really matter, but basically, real final sales to private domestic producers. This is exactly what he referenced right here. He calls it the PDF-P. Whatever. Okay, the sum of consumer spending and gross private fixed investment. Yo, man, that's too complicated. How much money did businesses and people spend? Okay, it's that simple. Okay, how much money did businesses and people spend on junk? Not the government, not China containers. How much did business and people spend in the first quarter of 2024 or 3%? Okay, that's really good. Now, how much of that is a pull forward? How many people were buying Fords in Q1 because they thought tariffs were going to raise the prices, which, I mean, they are. Ford just announced the 2K price increase. Rivian says they're going to see a 3K impact. Not sure if they're going to raise the price because they don't really have pricing power. They have really small PP, but I've been saying that since Rivian was over $150. Anyway, so that's been a while. But anyway, this number is the number Jerome Powell is referencing. So now this gives us a little bit of an equation for when Jay Powell is actually going to do anything and get off his ass. Because he's going to be late, okay? I'm telling you, he's going to be late. Like, they're going to be worried about inflation. They're going to be late. Unemployment's going to start skyrocketing. Then you're in a recession, and the Fed's going to go, oh, crap! But then it's too late, okay? Then the poopy doopy hits. That's when you want to buy, by the way. when the Fed freaks out, that's buy time. So anyway, what do we have here? This is a pretty clear number that we could look at. The problem is we're not going to get another one of these GDP reads until July. July is when we're going to get Q2 earnings and Q3 forecasts. July is when we're going to see layoffs. July is when we're going to see the damage that tariffs have caused in Q2. So we're just not going to know for another 3 to 4 months. And they're not going to cut in July because the July data is going to come in throughout July and the beginning of August, which really means the Fed ain't going to do jack anything until at the earliest September. But by then it could be too late and you could have a nasty ass recession Christmas. Sorry, I shouldn't say bad words. Hey, on the bright side, I got bingo. Please admire bingo on the right side there. Labor market still solid. Layoffs remain low. Long-term inflation expectations remain anchored. Import and export disruptions skewed GDP in Q1, which could lead to restatements of Q1 GDP. Basically revisions, just like Besson is talking about. The debt is unsustainable. Should the labor market weaken more, we're prepared to respond. In other words, we're not seeing the layoffs yet. He talked about his 4 big changes from Trump: fiscal, tax, immigration, regulatory. He didn't mention geopolitics this time, though. He was about to say that he's not going to quit, but he basically just reiterated no comment on politics twice. People are still spending money. He had a purple tie. He said good afternoon. We could respond quickly if we need to, and he was on time. And he definitely implied no June cut. So if you were looking for any kind of implication for a June cut, you didn't get it, which shouldn't have been a damn surprise anyway. I mean, this is what we talked about for the last, whatever weeks on the channel. It's like, stop begging Jay Powell to do anything. He's not. He's going to be late and slow. Now, don't get me wrong. I think what he's doing is the right thing for the place that he's in. And it's actually kind of interesting because if they cut too early, they kind of license more tariffs. Crazy thought if you think about it that way. Weird. You might not agree with it. That's fine. I've decided I'm just going to speak my mind every damn day. No more caring if people like me or not, because I've just realized nobody's going to like me. Except hopefully Lauren and my 7 children. I got to work on the 7 children part. Anyway, Fed, okay, what else do we have here? So they're well positioned to respond. We talked about GDP, 150K job average, transitory. Oh, this was interesting. The nature of whether or not these tariffs are going to be transitory in terms of price impact depend on how long the tariff disruption will last. And we have to determine if the price impacts are going to be persistent or not. And so we're going to pay attention to negotiations that are going on. So basically, everything is in the hands of Donnie T and his negotiations, which if these negotiations are going to go anything like they did in 2018, they're going to end not with a solution, but with Donald Trump not making any deals and then Jay Powell eventually having to bail out the market. Anyway, quick shout out, by the way, to Zero Hedge. That was really cool. # not sponsored. Like, Powell, one thing we hear a lot is we could have explained QE better. And then they said, don't worry, Kevin will explain it better. Shout out to zerohedge.com. They actually have really good perspective. I do like them. You have to balance them though, just with everybody else. You have to balance me out too, okay? Don't use just one source. Use many sources. Okay, well positioned for greater clarity. Can't say which way things shake. And again, I say the same thing about me. That's not a slam, you know. Just don't only listen to me. Can't say which things will shake out. Great deal of uncertainty out there. Sure, if you look through the distortions, the economy looks solid and the underlying inflation picture is good. This was interesting. But because of the tariff problems, we could end up delaying progress for a year. Now that was crazy, okay? That was another big picture moment there where Jay Powell's like literally like, yeah, bro, dude, 2024, we got unemployment in the low 4% for more than a year. We got low 2% for inflation. We got 2.5%. Jay Powell is basically molding his statue. He's like, I did it. I solved the COVID inflation. Look at my statue. And then and then Donald Trump comes, hold my beer, have some tariffs, bitch. And then Powell's like, oh, you asshole. And basically now he's saying, hey man, you know, we might get delayed by a year. We might not be able to finish the job, or things are going to break. And then when things break, they'll obviously respond very quickly, just like they did in 2024. The guy's like, oh, how much unemployment are you going to be willing to tolerate? He just told you. He literally just told you. Look at 2024 as an example. All right. Downside risks have increased. Uncertainty very high. Blah, we haven't had tension for a very long time between unemployment and inflation. Duh, that was back in the 70s. This is not a 1970s situation. Yeah, they're watching shipping information. Very likely your strategy Q3 could be affected. We're in a tricky situation. Ends the life. All right. Okay, that's it. That's all I got. Dude, I didn't do the house hack pitch until the end. You know how many people watch until the end? Not everyone. I should have done the house hack pitch at the beginning. Dang it. You know what? F it. No house hack pitch today. No house hack pitch. That's it. I will not pitch househack.com or the Meet Kevin course. None of it. We're done. It's over. I'm gonna go make another coffee.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.